Salutations to the Night Chit Chat channel's viewers. The love story of the next mother is an excellent and captivating tale that we will be enjoying today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you and your friends will find some time to unwind after reading the story. Remember to support the Night Chit Chat channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Now, let's examine the story's primary theme together. A remote village in the city of Von Yen Ben, where everyone knows one another and leads a straightforward but fulfilling life. However, the context of Mr. Tan's second marriage has changed since then. The entire village starts talking about a man who has been living alone for many years. Is kind, and works hard. The woman Mr. Tan is planning to marry is the subject of rumors. Who is she? How can an elderly man from this impoverished little village convince a stunning woman to marry him? Furthermore, what impact can she have on Mr. Tan and his son, Mr. Lam? A car from the town pulled up in front of the village one afternoon as the red flowers were beginning to fall. With tears in her eyes, a woman stepped down, grabbed a bag of flowers, and drove off. In order to display her soft skin, long black hair, and shiny silver hair, she wore a long, brightly colored shirt that hugged her body tightly. Every member of the village, young and old, was fixated on her. "Mom! I believe in God," yelled a child. When everyone could see the obvious difference between this woman and the other women in the village, the women in the village were unable to conceal their sudden look of jealousy. Lam returned home and took a seat beneath the ancient rice tree after a long day of laboring in the field. She got to her feet upon seeing Mr. Tan, and an odd sensation arose within her. "She's my stepmother, right?" Although Mr. Tan avoided eye contact, Lam was taken aback by the soft aroma emanating from her hair as he passed by. Lam felt her heart race for the first time in her life due to a powerful tremor. She tapped her cheek gently and said, "What do you think?" Lam, in a humble manner. "She's my stepmother, right?" The wedding of Mr. Tan and Lam was straightforward but packed with customs. Lam sat quietly by the table, occasionally looking at her stepmother, Mrs. Tam, who was wearing a white dress and whom Mr. Tan was extremely proud to marry. The men in the village were whispering to each other because of the lovely scent. Mr. Tan must be overjoyed at the lovely aroma. Is marrying an elderly man attractive? How unfortunate. I can't dispute my stepmother's beauty, but whenever I hear someone compliment her, I feel like I have something unique and cool inside of me. Mrs. Tam started to take on the role of stepmother in the family after the wedding. She cooked rice, cleaned the house, and gave her all to the dishwashing. However, she faced a significant obstacle on the first day when she had to deal with her son Lam Lai, who appeared to be insane. Tam wore a flimsy three-piece shirt and embraced her body to flaunt her grace when she got up early one morning to make breakfast for the entire family. After leaving the room, Lam noticed Tam occupied in the kitchen. His heart began to beat more rapidly. His stepmother's beauty left him unsure of what to do. Tam gave Lam a kind grin and a lovely voice. Lam sat down to eat, his face flushed from the bacon. Lam tried not to look into her eyes, but he couldn't help but feel his stepmother's admiration no matter how hard he tried. It was a weird sensation, but it was also really hard to put into words. Tam's shrewdness and elegant beauty won him admiration right away. But she remained a mystery to Lam. He tried to keep his distance from her, but he wanted to get close. Lam felt his heart pounding more quickly each time Tam passed by wearing a thin shirt in the wind. However, each time the two unintentionally locked eyes, he quickly looked away, bewildered by emotions he was unable to comprehend. "Your stepmother is this." However, Lam experienced an inexplicable feeling in his heart upon seeing Tam. Mr. Tan's family life improved after the wedding. Although Mr. Tan didn't say much, he seemed to be someone else because of Tam. He spent a lot of time caring for and spoiling the new wife in addition to struggling to earn more money. Tam was witty, kind, and skilled at giving Mr. Tan the impression that he was still attractive despite his advanced age. Tam always prepared his favorite meals, laughed, and occasionally cracked a few amusing jokes that made him chuckle at every meal. Lam felt just a little uneasy about that scene. With just two tiny beds and a thin blanket separating them, Lam was unable to conceal his words or laughter. every night, Tam and Mr. Ton talked about their marriage while in tears. Dong Ong was informed by Mr. Ton that he once loved Vung. And Tam occasionally cracked a few amusing jokes while grinning. Tam said, half joking, half true, "This man married me and used to flirt with Vung. The destiny of Dong Sun Village, who dared to hope for a woman as beautiful as this, is responsible for that." With pride, Mr. Ton spoke. The words continued to echo in Lam's ears as he lay on the side of the bed, staring at Tam. Mr. Ton once said something that made him feel like throwing up. "Although she is my wife, this Tam is really gorgeous, it must be very regrettable for the villagers." Tam laughed, but he remembered to respond in a chilly, endearing voice. It was difficult for the villagers to sit outside the window. Lam wanted to cover his ears with his red face, but he was unable to find the curiosity. Another night, Lam simply dozed off when he heard a louder-than-normal noise coming from the opposite direction. Mrs. Tam and Mr. Ton laughed as well as conversed. The long breath had a hidden meaning every now and then. Lam attempted to shut his eyes, but Mr. Ton's words prevented him from imagining. This is how Mrs. Tam is. Lam must be envious as well. What is the object of jealousy? Who is he? Lam lay in a daze, his heart pounding, while Tam laughed half-jokingly. "I blush when my name is mentioned in stories like that, and you have no idea why. Your father just mentioned the scent of my mother's hair. When you went by, I unintentionally felt it a couple of times. That's what confused you even more." Lam lay motionless, attempting to doze off, but your father's voice came back. "Hello, Tam. I really do miss you. Give this man a hug. Only last night, but once more now. You were too attractive to do anything, but who said that? Later, I'll be wealthy. I simply allowed you to spend the entire day in bed, naked. When I want to be that, just wait. Even at your advanced age, you continue to think that way. Why do you treat me so badly? Perhaps you dislike it. So be it, if you like it. However, what if Lam notices? My goodness. He is now as drowsy as a pig. How is it visible to him?" Ton's words were followed by the sound of Tam's mother laughing once more. "Man, hurry up. The neighbors will hear it all if you put in a lot of effort." "Whether or not they hear it is irrelevant. How can I control my happiness when my wife looks this beautiful?" All Lam could hear when he peered through the window was his mother's laughter. It was time for Lam to blow the flowers when he noticed his mother picking up some. Lam spent over 30 minutes watching his parents. Tam's mother now appears in his mind as this. You feel a particular connection to her, but she's not just another mother. Ton is not afraid to express his love for Tam, both during the day and at night. He frequently brings his wife water and firewood, and he even sits down to assist her without hesitation. Tam smiled once more at that moment. The men in the village must have laughed uncontrollably when they saw him like this. For what reason are you laughing? Nobody can even do that with a wife this gorgeous. Lam felt uneasy about that image, but he dared not say it. Mr. Ton retorted. Lam was unable to suppress the odd sensation in his heart on the evenings when he heard his mother and father laughing. You have no idea why every time I look at Tam, I feel perplexed. Although you place the blame on yourself, you cannot deny that Tam's appearance confuses your heart. The best part is when Tam washes his clothes outside the yard in the morning. The 33 shirt adhered to his body and was damp. Lam was taken aback by the intensity of the wind. He couldn't take his eyes off them, but he dared not look for a long time. She simply grinned and remained silent when Tam looked up and met his gaze. However, Lam felt even more ashamed after seeing that smile. From the moment his mother entered the house, Lam had to deal with challenging circumstances for which he was unsure of how to respond. In addition to admiring her lovely face, Lam blushed numerous times at Tam's inherent beauty and inaccuracy, but it also made his heart stop beating. Lam went outside to fetch water one morning. He had just arrived at the point where he was astounded to see his mother doing his laundry. The top of the thin white shirt she was wearing was open. Each time she leaned down, a stunning picture appeared in his eyes. His hair was tidy, but his eyebrows were untidy, and he had a scarf over his shoulder. Lamb was about to look away when he unintentionally noticed a damp shirt clinging to his body. He was astonished and unsure of how to display his endearing features. Tam looked up at that moment, grinning. Lamb left to fetch some water. He returned to assist his mother in handling this lemon. Like a lost soul, Lamb took a step back. Although he made an effort to avoid looking at his mother directly, the sweet smell of her continued to return, infuriating him. Lamb unintentionally touched Tam's hand while assisting her with the lemon. Tam gave a slight smile, but it seemed to convey that he understood what you were thinking. Lamb had a hard time falling asleep that night. He noticed the light fading from Tam's melancholy as he got up to go out for a drink. When he saw his mother through the window, he became curious and nearly got to his feet. Like a swan, Tam sat on the bed in a thin sleeveless shirt. He had long hair that reached his shoulders. Each gentle curve was visible through the cloth in the oil lamp's light. She didn't know, but she still let her hair fall loose. Her natural beauty made Lamb stand and stare, seemingly forgetting himself. Tam abruptly spun around, and through the window, his gaze met Lamb's. Lamb's heart pounding, he rushed back to his bed. Tam remained silent, but during the meal the following morning, she gave him an unintelligible look that made Lamb feel even more ashamed. When it was raining heavily one afternoon while Lamb and Tam were at work, the two mothers hurried into a little hut by the bed to hide. All of their clothing was soaked by the intense rain. Tam hastily drained the old towel of water, but her flimsy sleeveless shirt was damp and adhered to his body, exposing the silver skin within. Lamb turned his face away, but the smell of his mother's body and the rain made it impossible for him to control his rage in that small area. Tam recognized Lamb's perplexity. The rain was so heavy that the two mothers must be ill, because she laughed as though she had just happened to do so, as though she was in a trance. Lamb simply paused, staring up at the sky, but the picture of Tam in his damp clothes was still in his mind. On a different day, Tam summoned Lamb to the roof to repair the sheets that had been wrapped in wind. When Lamb heard the call, he returned from his trance to hold the ladder for his mother. Lamb turned to see his stepmother kneeling with a hammer in her hand. The part of her chest and the edge of her shoulders were visible through her wet shirt. Tam recognized and grinned as he quickly turned away. What a timid boy. Lamb blushed at what Tam had said, but he dared not speak. He simply nodded and went about his work. Lamb became even more perplexed by those circumstances. He constantly struggled in his heart between two feelings. Respect for his stepmother, on the one hand. On the other hand, he was unable to explain the strange feelings. Lamb attempted to forget, but he blamed himself for thinking incorrectly about his stepmother. His mental pictures of her grew more distinct. Will you confront your emotions? Did you fail to recognize your odd eyes? Tam. I have to hear your father and stepmother's voices every night. Husband, your father and stepmother are content, but I feel very uneasy being here. Thousands of ants seem to be biting at people I am unable to touch. Time passes. In Dong Sun village, his family lived in harmony under a modest roof. But people did not like fate. Tam was wandering around the kitchen one early morning after Lamb had just left Dong when Thach Ton's voice came from the bedroom. Mr. Ton was lying on the bed, motionless, when Tam rushed in. He only had time to glance at his wife before she rushed to wake him up. He took her hand with shaking hands and then released it. Lamb rushed home after hearing the news. Seeing his father depart due to the famine for good. The entire village showed compassion by attending Mr. Ton's funeral. Tam crouched beside the casket. The tears continued to fall. He was unable to stop. Lamb stood beside him in silence. His concern for his mother-in-law and his concern for his father were both evident in his deep eyes. Tam had joined this small family. Despite having been a bride for less than 2 years, only the two mothers and kids remained, sitting suspiciously to the side, after everyone had left. I don't know how our 2 kids will live from now on, but I swear I won't do anything to harm your father, Tam said. Lamb remained silent, but he secretly thought his mother-in-law was frail. Tam made him feel as though he had to defend his mother-in-law while they were sitting in the middle of the night. Tam and Lam gradually became more dependent on one another after Mr. Ton passed away. Lam initially believed that he had a duty to assist his mother-in-law, but as time went on, he came to understand that his concern for her was not solely motivated by his duty. After supper one night, Lam worked in the pouring rain to fix a broken painting machine. With a flashlight in hand, Tam stood beside him. Lam couldn't take his eyes off his mother-in-law's pale face because of the flashlight's light. Lam smiled as he glanced at Tam, but the smile made Lam's heart race. "Oh, nothing." Although Lam knew he couldn't conceal that emotion indefinitely, he turned around. Lam was sleeping one night when he heard an odd noise and woke up. Tam was wandering between the kitchen window, which was blown by the wind, when he woke up. Why did his mother wait until it was too late for Lam to approach and take the hammer from Tam's grasp? A strong wind blew past them as they were fumbling with the window. The thin shirt inside Tam's jacket was exposed when it was pulled out. Lam was taken aback. His gaze jerked downward and then swiftly averted. Tam could not conceal his bewilderment as he called out in a raspy voice. "Lam! I apologize, but let me go on." Tam simply stood motionless and stared at you without saying anything. His eyes seemed to understand and blame at the same time. Time went by. Lam and Tam's relationship became increasingly complex as they encountered similar circumstances. Tam became aware that his son's eyes were becoming increasingly odd, but she was powerless to stop him or place the blame on him because Ton had left. Tam asked Lam if she was depressed and if she wanted to take another step one night while they were sipping tea under the moonlight. Lam was uneasy but was unable to communicate it. "No one can replace Dad," he said. "Don't think so, Mom. I'll look after Mom." Tam grinned, but it was a hollow smile. She remained silent and simply gazed at the starry sky, feeling torn between emotion and logic. Lam's unease increased when he was close to Tam. His heart was a mess every time he saw her. Despite knowing that his feelings were incorrect, he was unable to stop. Even though Tam made an effort to avoid her, his son-in-law's actions warmed her during her lonely moments. When Lam abruptly stopped Tam from going to the kitchen one afternoon because she was exhausted from a long day, Mom sat down to rest and let her cook. Tam was shocked to learn that his son could cook. If he didn't know, he would now. Mom gave him permission to worry. Tam simply grinned to himself, but Lam was unable to see the smile when he rolled the meat because of the splashes of fat oil. "All right, let Mom assist. You will have to eat raw meat with rice if you do this. Or in the tiny kitchen, your mother and son cook together." The house was empty, but the laughter warmed it. Tam became acutely aware that this was the first time she had felt light and at ease since the day he died. After a particularly bad rain one day, Tam became very sick. Lam frantically searched for medication for his mother because he was worried. The child was worried, so Mom just lay down to rest. With firm concern, Lam said, "Boil the water, cook the soup, and then gently assist Tam in sitting up. Mom just let the child give it to her, but it doesn't matter if it's sick." Lam gave the little girl a gentle pat on the back when her face was tired. Tam's heart was warm, but he stared into Lam's serious eyes. Jason's fingers got stuck in her smooth skin as he gently placed the warm towel on her forehead. They both came to a sudden halt. "Mom is very fortunate to have a son like you," Tam said with a smile. Lam wanted to say something, but he just stared at her. Simply nodded to carry on working. Lam fell to the ground again after purposefully creating a ladder to climb the tall papaya tree. Luckily, Tam was able to get to his feet, but the unexpected assistance caused them to both collapse. Tam was in his son-in-law's arms. "It's okay, Mom," Lam said, his eyes worried. Tam's legs were numb and unresponsive when he attempted to stand up. "You felt the girl next to you's warm breath as you assisted her in standing up." At that moment, they both looked at one another. Tam quickly turned away as the room seemed to stop. Red face, "It's all right, Mom, thank you." Lam nodded as well, but the picture lingered in his mind for days. As time went on, there were increasingly challenging times between Lam and Tam. Lam gave his mother-in-law extra care and attention in addition to providing for her. Tam made an effort to avoid his son-in-law, but he was unable to ignore the tremor whenever he was close to him. The days they spent together were challenging, they forgot their given names as they shared their happiness and sorrows. Tam brought a warm blanket after lunch. Lamb also brought a chair so they could sit quietly next to her. The entire area became strange and serene as the light shone on the yard. Lately, I have been struggling. I'm sorry for you. With a full voice, Tam said. Lamb grinned and shook his head. All I want is for you to be well. Tam's eyes gleamed in the moonlight as he turned to face you. Thank you, Mom, she said softly as she placed her hand on Lamb's hand. I'm not sure what would happen to me without you. Both eyes met in silence at that moment. Even though Lamb's heart was racing, he made an effort to remain composed. After shaking his hand, Tam got to his feet. Mom went to bed because it was late, however, your feet were trembling. Lamb unintentionally drew you into his heart and quickly put his hand down. Tam remained motionless, obviously aware of every heartbeat in his chest. Tam had trouble sleeping that night. The sensation in her heart felt like a mist as she continued to think about Lamb's eyes and the warm hands that held her. It was fiercer the more she struggled to hold on. Lamb, on the other hand, was also unable to remain motionless. How could he stop the love from blossoming in his heart when he knew he was going too far? When Tam abruptly left the yard at almost midnight, he noticed Lamb sitting peacefully beneath a branch. She approached Lamb to take a seat beside him. Mom had a question for you. Yes, Lamb startled me, but he made an effort to remain composed. You said. Do you think your mother is interfering with your life? Lamb gazed at you with intense emotion in his eyes. Mom said that, but why? Your mother is your family. Mom is not your biological mother, Tam said with a sigh and a shake of his head. Mom is terrified, she fears things that shouldn't occur. Lamb's lips tightened as though he were struggling with himself. I don't know since when, but I really want to protect you, you said, holding out your hand at the end. Not only due to Dad, but also via you. Her eyes were teary as though she were going to cry as Tam gave her a hug. Without a word, she simply withdrew her hand, got to her feet, and entered the house. No one could forget what they said that day, even though they both made an effort to avoid each other for days afterward. Both Tam and Lamb experienced confusion whenever they saw one another, but they also felt an odd, alluring attraction. Tam stumbled and fell one morning as he was approaching the garden. To assist her, Lamb rushed out of the house. Are you all right, Mom? Lamb's eyes were filled with worry. Tam raised his head and gave you a look. The distance was too close, and his cheeks were flushed. Are you all right, Mom? She said with a smile, but she waited for Lamb to assist her before getting to her feet. Both of them understood then that their emotions had gone too far. Tam lit a candle while sitting in front of Mr. Tan's altar that evening. I know I'm wrong, but I can't stop my heart, she sighed. Lamb observed that scene from a distance. He had a wounded and hurt heart. He took a step toward her and touched her shoulder. I'm sorry, Mom. Don't call me Mom anymore, Tam said, turning around with tears in his eyes. Lamb's confessional statement momentarily perplexed them both. Tam and Lamb's relationship has gotten harder than it was before that night. They both know what it feels like to have gone too far. However, they also realize that receiving recognition alters their relationship and forces them to appear in front of the entire village. Tam made an effort to stay away from Lamb and steer clear of intimate situations. However, the more she made an effort to stay away, the more she became aware of Lamb's existence in her life. It couldn't be replaced. Lamb returned from the field one morning with a bucket full of fish while Tam was washing his clothes in the well. He froze for a second. Staring at her small form, a difficult feeling filled his heart. Let me do it, Mom. Lamb yelled. He took a step toward her. Tam turned and gave him a look. Not necessary, I'm used to it, Mom. Lamb, however, did not allow her to decline. He stooped to pick up his shirt collar. He lightly touched her hand. They both remained silent. Nobody was brave enough to meet each other's eyes directly. both Lamb and Tam realized the emotion in their hearts had reached a breaking point after trying to avoid it for days. Typically, they would meet eyes in silence, make pointless gestures of concern, or even fight through the night until they could no longer conceal their emotions. It rained a lot that day. Tam had left the market and was heading home. She panicked due to the strong wind, even though he attempted to cover his bags with a thin raincoat. She collapsed from head to toe as he reached the house gate. Lamb hurried out to retrieve her. "What are you doing, Mom? The rain is coming. Go quickly, gather your belongings, and bring her home." Tam took a seat in the chair. The cold was making his entire body tremble. Lamb was both accusing and concerned. Not daring to leave, Mom went to the room to change. Tam gave a brief nod before approaching the house. A voice called out to Lamb, "Mom." The towel was dropped beneath the stove by Mom. Lamb snatched up the towel and rushed up. He shook his head as he reached the front door. The door was closed, he realized. He was staring with wide-open eyes. "Please leave the towel here, Mom." "Go in, tiny and light, inside Tam's skin." Mom was unable to leave while getting dressed. Lamb entered after pushing the door. Unintentionally, his eyes got through the towel and the rag. He had white, smooth skin. His heart was pounding rapidly because the raindrops were still on his shoulders. "Turn your face and hurry up, Mom, son." On the bed, lay the towel. Although Tam was aware that this circumstance was peculiar, she chose to face it head-on. She returned Lamb's call. "Come in, Lamb," and shut the door. Lamb covered his face even though he really enjoyed it. "Yes, Mother. I apologize, but... However, what? I am aware of your desires, don't lie to yourself any longer," Tam said with assurance. "I came in specifically to see you wearing this suit, don't I? You've peeped at me in the bathroom how many times? I am aware of all of that. Never assume that you can see through my eyes." Lamb gave him a hug as his mother surreptitiously swept him. "You've been hugging for how long?" Indeed. "I apologize, but you're really stunning. Please don't let me finish, son." You were swiftly stopped by Tam. "What do you see?" "I'll give you all of that now. Dad is no longer with you. I also feel lonely a lot of the time. Let's support one another." Lamb heard it. "You no longer put on a brave front." Lamb applied the same actions that his father had previously taken against his mother. He studied under his father for 2 years. However, because of his youth, he frequently embarrassed his mother. Lamb and his mother gave each other hugs an hour later. "It's true that you and your father are different," his mother said with a laugh. "That is identical. I learned from my father," Lamb said, laughing. "My parents paid for me to watch free movies at night." Tam was taken aback. She either concealed herself while showering or only knew Lamb. She and Mr. Ton waited until midnight for the other item. They went ahead when Lamb fell asleep intoxicated. "However, I was surprised to see my son, Mom, don't worry. I really like you," Lamb said. "I see you more addicted than those young girls sometimes." She smiled and flushed at that sentence. Tam went to sit at his house that evening. The moonlight was shining brighter and brighter on her face. Lamb chose to sit beside her after taking numerous measurements. Mom did not fall asleep too early. "The weather is freezing," Tam grinned. All Mom wanted was a little silence. "I've been so perplexed lately." Lamb paused and said, "Look at me, son, be shown, Tam." "What do you know?" Lamb inhaled deeply. "Have courage, Mother. I'm not sure when, but you no longer seem like a mother to me. I can't stop. Even though I know it's wrong." Tam didn't say anything. She had tears in her eyes. At last, she inhaled deeply. "Me too, Lamb. We cannot stop our hearts, but neither can I. It will never be accepted by society." Lamb took her hand. "I don't give a damn what people think, Mom. Mom, all I need is you." Tam withdrew her hand, but there were contradictions in her eyes. The village celebrated with a festival a week later. Lamb and Tam went to the market together to purchase some cooking supplies. Some of the villagers started chatting among themselves on the way home. Take a look at the mother and son there. So personal. Is there a complex situation? Tam felt those words pierce his heart like a knife. She made an effort to yank Lamb away more quickly, but her teary eyes were too obvious. Lamb knocked on Tam's door once more that evening. This time, you walked right in instead of getting up. I don't want those words to cause you any pain, Mom. I'm prepared to leave if it makes you uncomfortable. Tam gave you a look, the tears came. You said that, but why? I didn't want to part from you. Lamb dropped to his knees before her, hold her hand firmly. Then, Mom, stop running away. Mom, you have my undying love. Gently, Tam remained silent. Her will was still ready, even though she had been selling for a while. Heart. She gave a headshake. We were mistaken. She placed a hand on her cheek. She had hard eyes. Leave me alone if you're mistaken. Mom, all I need is you. Stay with me. Tam stopped resisting. The tears came. She gave a nod as though an emotional confession had gone on for too long. Lamb and Tam were content together once more that evening. In order to avoid making eye contact, they both agreed to avoid the countryside for a while the following morning. Even though Tam and Lamb were aware that society would not approve of their feelings, they were prepared to do whatever it took to keep their happiness intact. Although the road ahead was fraught with difficulties, both felt relieved for the first time when they were no longer forced to conceal their emotions. It was quieter than ever in the little house. Everywhere you looked in the house, you could still see the memories of Mr. Ton, the husband and father. Lamb and Tam were aware that they had to bid farewell to this unforgettable past in order to begin a new life. To make a simple meal, Tam got up early. She was dressed in a long brown shirt to bid Mr. Ton farewell. It had a dim line, but it was colorful. Lamb assisted her in washing the dishes in silence. When he saw the photo of his father, his eyes were sad. Will probably be understood by Mom and Dad. Lamb's voice was loud. Tam covered the altar with incense. He had red eyes. All Mom could hope for was forgiveness. In any case, Mom couldn't fulfill her promise to him to care for the child and live a decent life. Lamb firmly grasped her hand. Don't blame yourself, Mom. Dad thinks he doesn't want Mom to suffer or be alone because he loves her. Before departing, they both knelt to light the incense. Their hearts were filled with love and guilt, but they were also determined to live with themselves. Tam stood silently, observing the small house, the swaying walls, the trees in front of the yard, and the dirt road that led to the village before boarding the waiting car in front of the village. Everything served as a record of her life's most treasured moments and its most trying months. Lamb walked to Tam's side while carrying a bulky backpack. It's time to leave, Mom. Tam gave a nod. He continued to stare at the house. Mom never imagined she would leave this place. Mom believed she would stay here until the end of her life, and this is where she and Dad first met. Mom, there is home where Mom is. We're going to start somewhere else. Tam turned to face him, confidence shining in his eyes. At last, she grasped Lamb's hand and left without turning around. Lamb sat beside Tam in front of the little village, holding her hand firmly as though to reassure her that he would always be there. Tam closed his eyes and lowered his head to his shoulder, despite all the challenges that lay ahead. She felt her heart softened, loved but not concealed, for the first time in months. The green rice fields slowly disappeared from the distance. They started a new chapter in their lives, one that was both challenging and hopeful. Tam and Lamb traveled hundreds of kilometers to a small town. This is where Tam used to go temporarily to stay with a distant relative. With a great deal of hope and no shortage of difficulties, a new life began. In the center of the town, Tam and Lamb rented a modest room. Even though the room was only 10 meters wide, it was sufficient to protect them from the sun and rain. While Lamb worked as a housekeeper on a construction project, Tam was employed at a small grocery store. They set out early each day and came back at sunset. Even though we were exhausted, the most valuable time was spent together over dinner. Lamb simply nodded and inquired, she wasn't worn out today. She glanced at Tam with concern. Tam grinned, I'm all right, take your hair gently. I can see that all the challenges are lessened as long as you are here. Attention was immediately drawn to Tam and Lamb's arrival in the small town. The two mothers lived together like a pair of dogs, not a few people, even though the locals were unfamiliar with them. Tam once unintentionally overheard two customers conversing in a grocery store. She didn't look like the boy's mother, she was very young, yes, exactly. The day before, I also witnessed two individuals heading to the market while holding hands. Oddly, Tam made an effort to relax, but she was unable to conceal her nervousness when she got home. Tam said, "What's the matter, Mom?" after Lamb realized that. Tam nodded, but she let out a breath after a brief pause because Mom was afraid. Like in the countryside, we'll get caught up in the rumors once more. I don't want any more rumors to hurt you. Lamb took her hand. She had hard eyes. I don't give a damn about what people think, Mom, we're halfway there. Nobody has the authority to ruin someone else's joy. Lamb was working at the factory one afternoon when he unexpectedly had a minor mishap. He was hurt when a piece of wood fell on his shoulder. After hearing the news, Tam rushed to the hospital, where he saw Lamb lying in a bed. Pain was blazing in his face. Tam was unable to shed a tear. It's all right, Lamb said. Why don't you exercise greater caution than Lamb? Lamb took her hand, don't worry, Mom. My injuries are minor. You're most concerned about me, stop crying. Tam understood then that their love had transcended all reason. She could not deny that Lamb was the most stable place in her life, even though he was aware that society would not readily accept it, following Lamb's recovery. They made the decision to relocate to a more isolated area of the town so they could start over without having to worry about the dark. Lamb and Tam sat side by the little river close to their home one sunny night. Lamb took her hand, there was emotion in his voice. I promise to protect you no matter what, Mom, but I don't promise to be wealthy. Tam gave him a look, he had tears in his eyes. I've had a lot of arguments with myself, Lamb. I can't live without you, even though I know this love won't be simple, Lamb grinned. Give her a quick kiss on the forehead. Together, we will conquer all obstacles, though tinged with resentment. Mom, Tam, and Lamb's love only grows stronger. They are aware that they will have to overcome greater obstacles in the future if they want to coexist. Life still has a lot of surprises in store, however, they have each other, which is sufficient for them to continue on their current path. Lamb's and Tam's lives are becoming increasingly stable. But they both know in their hearts that they can't flee forever. Arguments are increasing daily, and occasionally they feel as though society is all around them. One day, while Lamb was heading to the market, he unexpectedly ran into Mr. Tan, a close friend of his father's from his hometown. Mr. Tan moved closer after instantly recognizing Lamb. Lamb had not seen him in a long time. So he was surprised. You're here, but why? Additionally, where is your mom? Lamb became frightened but soon relaxed. Yes, your mom is here too, we chose to live here in order to alter the atmosphere. Mr. Tan chuckled. That's excellent, but lately, there is a lot of gossip when people go home. Certain words are completely unfunny. Lamb's heart felt constricted, he did not respond, but he did understand Mr. Tan. He merely gave a nod. It took Mr. Tan a long time to anticipate this. Rumors from his hometown quickly reached Lamb and Mr. Tan's residence a few weeks later. The owner of their home started to look suspiciously at them. When they saw two people traveling together, the neighborhood was also dispersed. Mrs. Ban once gave her a strange look when Mr. Tan went to the market. Why do you have such a large son and you are so young? Or are your son and mother completely different in appearance? Although he smiled, Mr. Tan secretly thought that night that she had told Lamb, I don't think we can stay here for very long. Mother and son will not live in harmony if we go on. With hard eyes, Lamb said to her, Mom, I don't want to run away anymore. We will never be genuinely happy if we continue to hide forever. He let out a long sigh but was unable to respond. Lamb made the decision to invite Mr. Ton to meet him and Tam a few days later. The meeting was held in a tiny but poignant space. Mr. Ton's expression was unintelligible as he gazed at them both, clearly saying, "I love you, this is the truth, and I don't want to hide anymore." Lamb took Tam's hand. Mr. Ton blinked. What was wrong with his hand? "Do you understand what I mean, Lamb? Your stepmother is this." "Mr. Ton," Tam muttered, "I know this is wrong in everyone's eyes, but we have lived together and always looked out for each other. We have no control over this emotion." Mr. Ton shook his head and remained silent for a while, warning that others would be left out. "I'm not allowed to judge, though, Lamb. You've matured and must accept accountability for your choice." Tam and Lamb realized after that meeting that they had a very tough road ahead. They made the decision to relocate to a larger city where people are less concerned with one another's privacy, but their love was not feeble. Tam did his best to maintain the tranquility of their small, comfortable nest in the new city, and Lamb supported him every day. Even though there were still dark eyes, Tam and Lamb learned to let go and live for one another, starting a new life where they didn't have to hide their feelings from strangers. They realized that they didn't have to conceal the fact that their love was unique. It's challenging to change one's social identity, but what matters most is that they have the courage to live from their hearts. This concludes our story. Ladies and gentlemen, remember to inform us by leaving a comment. And now, goodbye to all of you. I'll see you at the next program.